This whole truck is so unsafe that it literally makes me pissed to just have to deal with the cleanup on this. If you're a halfway good shop, this isn't what you do. You don't do this to anyone under any circumstance for any reason. And if you do, just do us all a solid, close your shop. That's embarrassing. You're stealing from me, you're stealing from the customer, you're actually tarnishing the entire industry by doing garbage like this. All right, so a couple things you should note when you're trying to find a shop to do work on your vehicle. Even if it's only certain parts you can't do, you should still research the place you're gonna use. This poor truck sitting above me is an absolutely perfect example of that. First and foremost, this was his grandpa's truck. Grandpa passed away, he inherited the truck. So I'm not sure where the ball got missed here. I don't know if the shop he took it to was just basically liars, or if he didn't do good research on the shop, or maybe both. But this truck is full of everything you should never do to a vehicle. And we're gonna go over all that stuff in pretty good detail. I mean, starting at the back, you got shock mounts that are the lowest point of the truck by probably 3 inches. Worse more though, they're really, really crooked. You can see the welds on the tabs. Contrary to popular belief, you want a good weld, not more weld. And these welds are probably 1/2 inch thick in some spots. They look like they were done cold, like with a 110 welder. And especially on an axle with a 4-length, that's not what you do. You can really zoom in and see all the missed parts on the tabs. The notch is actually wide open in the bottom. I mean, to the point I can get my hands up inside of this notch. Only one side of this is even welded in. Luckily, he's not driven this truck very far. I can promise that would break over time. The shocks, the way they're installed, they bind up. Not only are they limiting the suspension travel, but they're actually binding at the top and cracking the top of not only the mount, but the shock itself. Furthermore, on this side, you can see the brackets are actually completely crooked. None of this stuff is straight. I mean, even saying that right here, I can't get my hand in, but over here I can get all the way through. So the axle isn't even centered in this mess either. So that'll cause drive shaft vibrations and other issues coupled with it. The bags, the way the mounts are built, would have been a good kit if they knew how to install it. I'm not kidding. I have an 11-year-old that does way better than this. Someone shouldn't have to pay you to do shit like this. This is terrible. Look at that. It's not even beveled or cleaned. Nothing. There's wires sticking out. I guess that's helpful. Same back here. They crammed the wiring inside of this little C channel, which is cool. If you look here, you can actually see it's like a C channel. But more importantly, they cut the C channel in half, welded that together to match the angles of the frame. When they did that, they didn't know how to weld there either, so they missed everything. And even this piece was good and new with the kit, isn't welded either. Both sides, nonetheless. So even this side's just as bad. And actually, I think this one's gonna fall off in a few minutes. Probably sitting here, it's that bad. And more off, the axle's actually sitting sideways. So this is further back on one side than the other, including the bracket and the axis. So every time this thing's airing up, it's twisting around instead of doing a good travel. The quality of weld and the quality of concept just don't exist. The wiring for the air system is actually rubbing through on the suspension itself. And for some reason, they have it laying on the exhaust system. This jacket isn't going to do anything. I can promise the wiring is damaged just from laying on it. Furthermore, while we're pointing out the exhaust, at some point they were trying to do duals, gave up, and decided to do a single, and the welds, I mean, I'm not even sure how to laugh at that so much out loud without being insultive, because it's not the plan. The hangers almost broke off the exhaust here. The wiring where it goes to the floor isn't even protected. It's just a sharp edge. Moving forward, we have 2 fuel filters, not one. We have one in the return and one in the primary. The fuel tank is leaking all over the place. It's been retrofitted with a Holley Sniper unit, so we're fearful of what we'll find when we drop the fuel tank. Moving forward, you can actually see some more on the exhaust. They were so embarrassed by this weld, they exhaust taped it instead. It's this really shiny, cool piece. I think it's probably the best part of the entire bottom of the truck. More importantly, something you should note, the year this truck is requires a stock California-approved catalytic converter. That's not here. So if this guy was trying to get emissions done anywhere, he would fail miserably and immediately, strictly because it's been removed. Even if you update, you still have to have the newer catalytic converters and be up to emissions code. More crappy welds. We have a cool exhaust cutout. Not sure why. But more on the exhaust is it's the lowest point of the truck. So this thing is supposed to be built to lay out, and for some reason the exhaust is the lowest section by probably 3 inches. More importantly, when you lay down on this, it pushes it up into the flywheel cover. Yeah, the flywheel's on the other side of that. So the flex plate. So it's actually going to chew it up at some point. Fuel lines and brake lines just kind of laying all over the place. Like the brake line should probably be secured, but probably not using zip ties to wiring, maybe. Fuel line should probably be secured instead of hanging below the point of the bottom of the truck. We have a 396 stroker in here from Blueprint. However, the way they installed it, they didn't bother to do a good booster, so they tried to put an electric booster on it. We have the seat mounts are all broken. They used standard thread and a metric housing and ripped all the nuts off the bottom of it. The carrier bearings supported by 2 different types of bolts, 2 different sizes, 2 different grades, 2 different threads. And probably the icing on the cake here are these beautiful shock mounts. So this isn't even, I think that's a 16th wall on this tubing. That's it. So they welded this, questionably, to the control arm here. And these were nice control arms. I don't know what happened there, but even the upper mount they tried to make, they didn't even get the welds done. It's just tacked into place is what it looks like. This side is the same thing. Difference on this side is they use a little thicker tubing, but they've welded it, I don't know, 5 times maybe? Hard to say. And going further into the safety issues, when you look at the brake caliper, you can actually see where the line is contacting the control arm and it's folding the line over and tearing it. This is a stainless steel braided Teflon lined brake line, and it's actually pinched and crimped already and starting to tear on something that has less than 20 miles on it. So probably should have checked during the driving, maybe test drive it. Steering stop, they only have 1, and they welded an aftermarket thing onto it. The other side doesn't even have one. I'm not even sure where to stop on this. I feel bad about the whole truck. The steering notch area up front here, same idea. I think it's tack welded. It's not even physically fully welded into the truck on either side. This is kind of cool. Cue the banjo music. So not sure what they were doing here. This ground probably should have been ran up inside, grounded elsewhere. Pretty cool. And I don't know, hardware is not that expensive. So why do we have 3 different bolts on here, including one that's stripped, 2 different types of nuts, 3 different types of nuts, just to hold that piece on. Pretty interesting overall. This makes it really hard for me to do a good job now because I've got to give them all this bad news, tell them how everything doesn't fit, everything that's wrong. I've got to try to sell the job being done corrected instead of the way it's done now. In a lot of cases, we have to start over. So like, even though these control arms are good, they're a stock width arm. They didn't select a narrowed one. On a bag truck, you want it narrowed. That way you still have some turning radius. And right now, if you turn the wheel at all past 15 degrees, you're rubbing and grinding the fenders. So what's probably more complicated about this particular truck? I mean, yeah, it's got a lot of mistakes made, and they're evident. I mean, everywhere you look, everything they welded, everything they wired, nothing, not a single thing got done right. So there's no justice done to the customer. However, 2 things to factor into that. Was the customer being cheap and was trying to find the cheapest shop he could, which means he got exactly what he paid for, or was the shop being dishonest, or maybe we even have both? All right, so this is where it gets harder. So now what do we got to do to make this right? First and foremost, we got to throw everything in the trash they did before. By the time I get done trying to save what's here, I've wasted the customer's money all over again. So our plan is to almost back half this truck, starting right in front of that crappy weld section behind the cab all the way to the tailgate, almost completely from scratch. There's a lot of companies we can work with that offer kits and suspension pieces and stuff, so we're going to explore all that. But we're also going to take the fuel tank out of the saddlebag location, move it to the back, and move it up where it's above the bottom of the truck. That way it's not one of the lowest points. One of the last things you want to do is get stuck, especially on a gas tank. That's just not the good way to do it. So up front, we're going to use a different set of control arms, probably from Fat Fabs. Overall, it's a 3-inch narrower setup that'll allow for a good steering radius, but also allow it to lay out at the same time. Coupled with that, we're going to have to redo this exhaust system all of it, from the header all the way to the tips. Saying that, now we've got to figure out what to do with the wiring because we have to relocate the air tank, the air compressors, and manifold. All that stuff is actually above the rear axle on this, and the water trap is actually being pushed in the bed floor by the axle when you lay it down. So, like I said, there's not a single thing done right on this. We've got to overcome all those mistakes, do it the right way, and make the customer feel good in the end. What's hard about that is he's already been taken once, so now he's nervous, has some anxiety about it, which I totally appreciate. But now I'm trying to overcome that. So not only do we have the work on the truck, but I have the work on the office end of things, trying to be more descriptive about the process and explain to him everything that should have been done that wasn't done, explain why it's right versus wrong, and make him feel good about it at the same time. So it just causes a lot of turmoil for everybody. So my opinion here, you're seeing this kind of stuff now. But I bet if you look on their YouTube or their Instagram, by the way, we have both, and Facebook, you're probably going to see these kind of photos and these kind of things. And one of two things, either they think they're proud of it or they're hiding it so you don't see enough. As a shop owner myself, I have zero problem walking you through my shop, showing you stuff in progress, showing you stuff we have completed. We have reviews on Google for a reason as well. All those kind of things to just kind of allow you as the end user to do your own research, not only on us, but on any shop comparatively anywhere near us for that factor. Doesn't mean you got to stick locally either. There's a lot of times that locally you don't even have a shop available to you that can do this sort of thing. So then you're kind of looking out of town. Well, that's even more reason to do your research because it's out of town. You can't look at it all the time. So again, if you're that guy that does this and you think that's okay, just close your shop, dude. Do us all a solid. Just close your shop. Go flip burgers, please. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Give us a follow right now. Hit that subscribe button. Get to work, Arlen. Go to work. Although she saw the video this morning. And I brought her in the office. I had to show her she was turning red. Oh, it was great. She loved it. She's turning red now. Say bye, Erlen.
You're going to end up in the video twice.
Yeah, twice, yeah. She needs to just stop showing up when you got the camera out, boss.